The year was 2087. Humanity had spread beyond Earth, with busy colonies on Mars and mining stations on Europa. The red dust of Mars now had human footprints crossing it in all directions. The ice of Europa was being carefully drilled for the rich minerals beneath. Admiral Frank Lawson stood at the viewing window of Earth Orbital Defense Station 3. At 62 years old, his hair had gone completely white, but his eyes remained sharp and alert. The blue curve of Earth stretched below him, beautiful and vulnerable. The station was almost complete. Soon it would join its two sister stations in protecting Earth from whatever might come from the stars. "Admiral, we have a situation," said Lieutenant Grace Howard, her voice tense as she approached. "Unknown objects just appeared at the edge of our solar system." "They're big, sir, really big." Lawson turned away from the window. "How many?" 17 large vessels. They're not answering our hails." Within minutes, Lawson was in the command center, surrounded by screens showing the approaching ships. They moved with precision, their hulls dark against the stars. "They're slowing down," said Officer Peter Dixon, who monitored the deep space sensors. "Taking up position just beyond Pluto's orbit." Lawson watched the screens carefully. "This is first contact," he said quietly. "Alert the United Earth Council. Wake up President Miller." In Washington, D.C., President Samantha Miller rushed into the emergency council chamber. At 47, she had been president for less than a year. Her dark hair was pulled back hastily, and she wore a simple blue suit she had grabbed in her rush. "What do we know?" she asked the gathered officials. "Nothing yet," replied Defense Secretary William Boyd. "They're just sitting out there watching." 3 tense days passed. Earth's military went on high alert. People looked up at the sky with new fear. Then the aliens moved. A single ship broke from their formation and headed toward Earth. It was smaller than the others, but still massive. "They're requesting permission to send a diplomatic party to our lunar base," announced Communications Director Lisa Reyes. President Miller straightened her jacket. "Tell them permission granted. I'll meet them myself." The alien ship landed at Armstrong Lunar Base with precision. From it emerged 6 beings. They walked on 2 legs and had 2 arms, but that's where the similarities to humans ended. Their skin was pale blue with darker blue markings. They stood nearly 7 feet tall. Their eyes were large and completely black. The lead alien stepped forward to meet President Miller. "I am Ambassador Krell of the Craxian Empire," it said through a translation device. "We control 237 star systems. Your solar system now falls within our expansion zone." Miller kept her expression neutral. "Welcome to Earth's territory, Ambassador. I am President Samantha Miller of the United Earth Council." The meeting moved to the lunar base's conference room. Large windows showed the gray lunar landscape and, beyond it, the blue Earth hanging in space. "Let me be direct," said Ambassador Krell. "Your civilization has been assessed. You have achieved space travel but have not yet developed faster-than-light capabilities. Under Craxian law, this places you in Category 3. You may continue to exist, but under our rule." The 4 Craxian soldiers who had accompanied Krell stood silently behind him. Their armor looked impossibly advanced, with strange lights pulsing beneath its surface. "What exactly does under your rule mean?" asked Miller. "You will pay a yearly tribute of 20% of your world's resources. You will accept Craxian garrisons on Earth and all your colonies. Your military will be limited to planetary defense only. In return, you gain the protection of the Empire and access to certain technologies we deem appropriate for your development level." Frank Lawson, standing behind President Miller, felt his face grow hot with anger. But Miller remained calm. "And if we refuse?" she asked. For the first time, the alien's face showed an expression, something like amusement. "No Category 3 civilization has ever successfully refused. Those who tried no longer exist." Krell gestured toward Earth visible through the window. "We would prefer not to damage such a resource-rich planet, but we will if necessary." Miller nodded slowly. "I understand. However, I cannot make this decision alone. Our world operates as a democracy. I must consult with our council and our people. Democracy, said Krell, as if tasting a strange food. An inefficient system, but we will allow time for your consultation. You have 30 Earth days to accept our terms before we take necessary measures. After the Craxians returned to their ship, Miller gathered her advisors. Options? She asked. We fight, said Admiral Lawson immediately. We have the orbital platforms, the Mars defense grid. Against an empire that spans hundreds of systems? Interrupted Secretary Boyd. It would be suicide. Maybe not, said a quiet voice from the back of the room. All heads turned to look at Dr. Alan Parker. The physicist was not usually included in military discussions, but had been called in given the extraordinary circumstances. At 55, with curly gray hair and round glasses, he looked more like a friendly professor than humanity's potential savior. The Prometheus Protocol, Parker continued. It's not ready, but with emergency funding and resources, we could have something in 28 days. The quantum weapon? Asked Lawson. I thought that was still theoretical. Not anymore, said Parker. We achieved the first stable reaction last month. It's limited, but the principles are sound. Miller looked thoughtful. Would it be enough to make them reconsider? If we do it right, said Parker, it would give them something they've never seen before. Something that might make even an empire pause. The next day, President Miller addressed the people of Earth. She did not mention the Craxian threat directly, but spoke of a historical moment requiring unity and resolve. Behind closed doors, resources were diverted. The Prometheus Protocol received unlimited funding. On Mars colony, engineers worked around the clock to modify the colony's power grid. On Europa, mining operations doubled, extracting rare elements needed for Parker's device. Dr. Parker barely slept. He worked with his team in the underground laboratory beneath the New Mexico desert. The equations covered every available surface. The quantum core glowed with strange light that seemed to bend in impossible ways. It's not a traditional weapon, Parker explained to President Miller during her visit to the facility. It doesn't destroy matter. It temporarily alters the rules that govern it. Will it kill people? Miller asked directly. Not the way we're configuring it, replied Parker, but it will show them what we could do if pushed further. 28. Days after the Craxian ultimatum, humanity was ready to respond. The Prometheus device was loaded onto a small, unmanned ship. The Craxian delegation was invited back to the lunar base. As the alien ship approached, Admiral Lawson stood beside President Miller and whispered, I hope this works. Miller nodded grimly. It has to. Ambassador Krell and 3 Craxian officers stepped onto the lunar base once again. Their tall, blue-skinned forms moved with confidence. They expected Earth's surrender. Instead, President Miller greeted them with a smile that confused the aliens. Ambassador, Krell, thank you for returning, she said. Before we give our answer, we'd like to show you something. A demonstration, if you will. Krell's black eyes narrowed. A demonstration of what? Of why the Craxian Empire might want to reconsider its position. Miller led the Craxians to a special viewing room on the far side of the lunar base. One entire wall was transparent, offering a clear view of space. Admiral Lawson and Dr. Parker were already waiting inside, along with Colonel Olivia Wright, a stern-faced military strategist with short blonde hair and 20 years of service. What is the meaning of this? Demanded Krell. Dr. Parker stepped forward. The tired physicist had not slept in nearly 30 hours, but excitement gave him energy. In exactly 6 minutes, a small vessel will reach Jupiter, he explained. I suggest you watch carefully. On a large screen, they could see the tiny ship that had left Earth 12 hours earlier. It approached the massive gas giant, looking impossibly small against Jupiter's swirling storms. That little ship? One of the Craxian officers laughed. That is your response to the might of our empire? Colonel Wright smiled thinly. Size isn't everything. When the ship reached its designated position, Dr. Parker spoke quietly into a communication device. Activate Prometheus. At first nothing seemed to happen, then a small bright point of light appeared near Jupiter. It wasn't an explosion. It was more like a tear in reality itself. The light didn't spread outward, it spread inward, as if space was folding into itself. The effect on Jupiter was immediate. A visible wave passed across the gas giant's surface. The great red spot, a storm that had raged for centuries, wobbled and distorted. Bands of gas that had flowed in one direction for millennia suddenly changed course. The Craxians moved closer to the window, their usual composure broken. "What is this?" whispered Krell. "We call it the Prometheus Protocol," said Dr. Parker. "What you're witnessing is a controlled quantum disruption. We've temporarily altered the gravitational constants in that sector of space." The disturbance continued for nearly 3 minutes before the light faded. Jupiter remained intact but visibly changed. New storm patterns swirled across its surface. "This demonstration used only 4% of the device's potential power," said Admiral Lawson, his voice hard. "At full capacity directed at a star rather than a planet, the effect would be considerably more dramatic." Krell turned to face the humans, black eyes unreadable. "You threaten the Empire with this weapon?" President Miller shook her head. "Not a threat, Ambassador. A simple demonstration of capability. We've existed on Earth for thousands of years, without your Empire's protection. We'd prefer to continue our independent development." "The Empire has faced weapons before," said one of the Craxian officers. "Weapons can be countered." Dr. Parker smiled slightly. "The Prometheus Protocol isn't exactly a weapon. It's a method of locally rewriting physical laws. Your sensors probably couldn't even detect how it works because it briefly creates conditions that your science may not have encountered." Parker's explanation was simplified. The actual quantum mechanics were far more complex. But the message was clear. Humanity possessed technology that was fundamentally different from what the Craxians knew. Colonel Wright stepped forward. "We're a peaceful species, generally speaking. But our history is filled with war. When threatened, we create things like Prometheus. This was a small demonstration on an uninhabited planet. Imagine what we might do if truly provoked." Krell was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke carefully. "The Empire will need to reassess this situation." "Of course," said President Miller. "Take all the time you need. We'll be here." After the Craxians departed, the humans gathered in the lunar base's secure conference room. "Do you think it worked?" asked Miller. Admiral Lawson shrugged. "Hard to say. They seemed impressed, but these are conquerors we're dealing with. They won't back down easily." "They shouldn't," said Colonel Wright. "In their position, I'd test whether Prometheus was a bluff." Dr. Parker sighed heavily, suddenly looking very tired. "It's not a bluff, but it has limitations. We can't just mass produce these devices. Each one requires rare materials and enormous energy. The one we just used took nearly all the power Mars colony could generate." "Could we build more?" asked Miller. "With time and resources, yes. But right now we have exactly one more device, ready, and it won't be fully charged for another 2 weeks." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. If the Craxians attacked in full force before then, Earth would have limited options. 3 days passed without word from the Craxian fleet, then 4, then a week. Life on Earth continued with an uneasy normality. People went to work, but they watched the sky more often. Military recruitment reached record highs. Dr. Parker's team worked around the clock to improve the Prometheus technology. On the 10th day, the alarm sounded. 5 Craxian ships have broken from the main fleet, reported Lieutenant Grace Howard. They're heading for Mars colony. Admiral Lawson rushed to the command center. "Alert Mars defense grid. Get me Colonel Benjamin West at Mars Command." The face of Colonel West appeared on screen. He was a solid man with a thick mustache who had commanded Mars colony's defenses for 3 years. "We see them, Admiral," he said calmly. "Defense systems. Ready." "This is a test," said Lawson. "They want to see if we were bluffing about our capabilities." "What should we do, sir?" Lawson hesitated only briefly. "Defend the colony with everything you've got. Show them we're serious." The Craxian ships approached Mars with obvious confidence. They probably expected minimal resistance. What they encountered instead was a carefully prepared defense system. Titan. Railguns emerged from the Martian surface. Orbital platforms activated powerful laser arrays. Earth's newest destroyer, the UES Defiant, decloaked from its hiding place behind Phobos, Mars' largest moon. The battle was brief but fierce. 2 Craxian ships were destroyed outright. A third was badly damaged. The remaining 2 retreated, clearly, surprised by the effectiveness of Earth's weapons. On Earth, President Miller watched the satellite feed of the battle with mixed emotions. They had won this skirmish, but it was just the beginning. "They'll be back," said Colonel Wright, who stood beside her. "And next time they'll bring the full fleet." Miller nodded grimly. "Then we better be ready." In his laboratory, Dr. Parker received news of the Mars attack with grim determination. He turned to his team of exhausted scientists and engineers. "We need to find a way to miniaturize the Prometheus technology," he said. "And we need to do it now." News of the battle at Mars spread quickly across Earth. People gathered in homes and public places to watch the reports. Some celebrated the victory. Others worried about what would come next. In the Craxian fleet beyond Pluto, Grand Admiral Zarex was not pleased. The tall, blue-skinned commander's face showed rare emotion as he paced the bridge of his massive flagship. 5 ships, he said, his voice dangerously quiet. 5 of our ships challenged by a species that hasn't even left its own star system. The captain who had led the failed attack stood stiffly at attention. His uniform was still damaged from the battle. "Their defenses were unexpected, Grand Admiral," said the captain, "and their weapons were more advanced than our scans indicated." "And this Prometheus device they demonstrated? Did you detect anything unusual during the Jupiter event?" "Our sensors recorded a localized distortion in space-time. It doesn't match any known weapon in our database." Zarex stopped pacing. "So they may have been telling the truth about their capabilities. Interesting." He turned to his war council. "Options?" A senior strategist stepped forward. "We could request reinforcements from the core worlds. With our full battle fleet, we could overwhelm their defenses regardless of this new technology." "That would take months," said another officer. "And if their Prometheus weapon can truly affect stars, as they claim—" "We need more information," decided Zarex. "Prepare long-range spy drones. I want detailed scans of their world, their defenses, and especially any trace of this Prometheus technology." On Earth, Lieutenant Ryan Martinez stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant as it docked at Earth Orbital Station 2 for repairs. At 32, Martinez was young for a ship commander, but he had risen quickly through the ranks. His dark hair was cut short, and a fresh scar ran along his left jawline, a souvenir from the Mars battle. "Damage report?" he asked his first officer, Lieutenant Kelly Ross. "Hull integrity at 82%, she replied. "Weapon systems mostly intact. The new shield generators took a beating but performed better than expected." Martinez nodded. The Defiant was Earth's newest and most advanced warship, built with a mix of human innovation and reverse-engineered technology from a crashed alien scout ship found in Antarctica decades earlier. It had performed well in its first real combat. "The Midway. Crew did good work out there," he said. "They deserve some rest, but tell them to stay ready. This isn't over." As Martinez had predicted, the conflict was far from over. 3 days after the Mars battle, Craxian spy drones were detected entering Earth's atmosphere. Most were shot down, but a few managed to transmit data back to their fleet. In Washington, D.C., President Miller met with the United Earth Council in an emergency session. "They're gathering information for a larger attack," said Defense Secretary Boyd. "Our intelligence suggests they're calling for reinforcements." "How long do we have?" asked Miller. "Weeks, maybe. A month at most before their main fleet arrives." Dr. Parker, who had been invited to the meeting, cleared his throat. "We've made progress with the Prometheus technology," he said. "We can now create smaller devices, though they're less powerful than the original." "How much less powerful?" asked Admiral Lawson. "They can't affect a planet, but they could disable a battleship, maybe several if positioned correctly." Colonel Olivia Wright leaned forward. That could give us an edge in ship-to-ship combat. But we're still outnumbered. We need more advantages. The meeting was interrupted when a young intelligence officer entered the room. Natalie Foster was 28, with auburn hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her face was flushed with excitement. "Madam President, I think I found something important," she said. "We've been analyzing the data from the Mars battle. The Craxians transmitted messages during the fight that mentioned other species." "Other aliens?" asked Miller. "Other conquered world," clarified Foster. "At least 3 different species were mentioned as serving on their ships, and there were references to recent rebellions in 2 star systems." The room went silent as everyone processed this information. "You're saying the Craxian Empire has internal problems?" asked Admiral Lawson. Foster nodded. "It seems so, and if these other species are already fighting back, then we might not be alone," finished Colonel Wright. For the first time since the crisis began, a new feeling spread through the room. Hope. President Miller turned to Lieutenant Martinez, who had also been asked to attend. "Lieutenant, your ship performed admirably at Mars. How soon could the Defiant be ready for another mission?" "With priority repairs, 3 days, Madam President," he replied. "Good, because I have a special assignment for you. We need to find these other species and see if an alliance is possible." Martinez straightened. "Yes, Madam President, as plans." For this daring mission took shape. Public opinion on Earth was shifting. News programs debated the crisis constantly. Some people called for immediate surrender to save lives. Others demanded all-out war against the Craxian invaders. In New York City, a tense protest formed outside the United Nations building. Signs with messages like "Peace at any cost" and "Stand against alien tyranny" showed the division among Earth's people. Barbara Chen, a popular news anchor with Global News Network, summed up the situation during her evening broadcast. 2 weeks ago, most of us had never heard of the Craxian Empire. Now they threaten our very existence. The Battle of Mars showed we can fight back, but at what cost? Sources within the government tell us Earth is preparing for war on a scale humanity has never seen. Meanwhile, President Miller assures us that diplomatic options are still being pursued. The diplomatic option was taking shape aboard the UES Defiant. The ship was being outfitted with enhanced stealth systems. Its mission, to slip past the Craxian blockade and make contact with other species who might help Earth. Lieutenant Martinez reviewed the mission parameters with his crew. "This won't be easy," he told them. "We'll be going behind enemy lines with no backup. If we're caught, there will be no rescue mission." "Where exactly are we going, sir?" asked Lieutenant Ross. Martinez activated a holographic display showing a star map. "Here," he said, pointing to a star system marked Valkyrie Prime. "Intelligence believes this species has been under Craxian control for decades but maintains a resistance movement. If we can find them, they might become valuable allies." While Martinez prepared for his mission, Dr. Parker made a breakthrough in his laboratory. After days without sleep, his tired eyes suddenly widened as data scrolled across his screen. "This could work," he whispered. Then louder, "This could actually work." His team gathered around as he explained his discovery. A way to target the Prometheus effect precisely at the quantum signature of Craxian warp drives. Instead of a general weapon, they could create a device that would specifically disable Craxian ships while leaving human vessels unaffected. "We'll need to test it," said Parker. "But if it works, we could neutralize their technological advantage." As dawn broke over Earth the next day, the UES Defiant silently detached from its docking station and moved away from Earth. Its mission was humanity's most daring gamble yet, to find allies among the stars before the full might of the Craxian Empire arrived. President Miller watched the ship depart from her office window. "Good luck," she whispered. "We're all counting on you." The UES Defiant moved silently through space, its new stealth systems hiding it from Craxian sensors. Lieutenant Ryan Martinez sat in the command chair, studying the star charts. They had been traveling for 5 days, moving carefully to avoid detection. "Coming up on the edge of Valkyrie space, sir," reported Lieutenant Kelly Ross from the navigation station. Martinez nodded. Maintain stealth. Sensors at maximum range. Let's see what we're dealing with. The ship's sensors revealed 3 Craxian patrol vessels guarding the approach to the Valkyrie home system. Their size made the Defiant look tiny by comparison. Can we slip past them? Martinez asked his tactical officer, Lieutenant Eric Davis. Davis, a serious man with dark skin and 15 years of military experience, studied the sensor readings. Their patrol pattern has a gap. It's small, but with precise timing we might make it through. Martinez made his decision. Plot the course. We're going in. The Defiant glided between the Craxian ships, its engines running at minimal power to avoid detection. The bridge crew barely breathed as they passed within visual range of an enemy vessel. Finally, they entered the Valkyrie system and got their first look at Valkyrie Prime. It was a beautiful world, with swirling green oceans and land masses covered in what looked like purple forests. Picking up transmissions from the surface, reported Communications Officer Heather Jordan. And wait, there's something else. A small vessel, hidden in the shadow of the third moon. Martinez leaned forward. Can you tell if it's Craxian? Negative. The design is different. I think it might be Valkyrie. Martinez considered his options. Open a secure channel. Let's see if they're friendly. After several tense minutes of careful signaling, they received a response. A simple set of coordinates on the far side of the small moon. It could be a trap, warned Davis. It could be our only chance to make contact, countered Martinez. Take us in, but be ready for anything. At the coordinates, they found a small, sleek vessel with curved lines that made it look almost organic. A transmission came through, audio only. Unknown ship, identify yourself. How did you pass the Craxian blockade? Martinez took a deep breath. This is Lieutenant Ryan Martinez of the Earth vessel UES Defiant. We come seeking allies against the Craxian Empire. There was a long pause before the response came. Earth? We've heard rumors. The new world that dared to challenge the Empire. Meet us on the dark side of the 4th planet. Come alone. 8 hours later, Martinez led a small team to the surface of a barren, rocky world. They waited inside a shallow canyon, weapons ready. 3 figures appeared at the canyon's edge. They were tall and slender, with pale purple skin and large silver eyes that seemed to reflect light like mirrors. They moved with a fluid grace that made them seem almost weightless. I am Commander Estelle of the Valkyrie Resistance, said the central figure. Her voice had a musical quality. You have taken a great risk coming here. Martinez stepped forward. Earth is facing a Craxian invasion. We need allies. The Craxians have ruled our world for 40 years, said Estelle. Many Valkyrie serve them, willingly now. Those of us who resist are few. But you are fighting back? Estelle's silver eyes narrowed. We try, but we lack the weapons to challenge their warships. Martinez nodded. Earth has developed a technology that might change that. We call it the Prometheus Protocol. As Martinez explained the Prometheus technology, the Valkyrie listened with growing interest. When he finished by showing them footage of the Jupiter demonstration, Commander Estelle exchanged looks with her companions. Impressive, she admitted. But the Craxians have overwhelming numbers. Even with this technology, how can you hope to defeat their empire? We don't need to defeat their entire empire, said Martinez. We just need to make fighting us too costly. And if multiple worlds resist at once, for the first time, Estelle's expression showed something like hope. Come with me. There's something you should see. She led them to a hidden Valkyrie base built into the side of a mountain. Inside, engineers worked on sleek devices unlike anything Martinez had seen before. Shield technology, explained Estelle. It's our specialty. These can block Craxian energy weapons, but we lack the ships to use them effectively. Martinez studied the devices with growing excitement. What if we combined your shields with our Prometheus technology? A ship that could both defend against Craxian weapons and disable their drives. Estelle nodded slowly. It might work. Back on Earth, the situation had grown more dire. Craxian scout ships had been detected throughout the solar system. Their main fleet was getting closer. President Miller stood in the White House Situation Room, surrounded by advisors. A large screen showed the positions of known Craxian vessels. "Latest intelligence suggests their main force will arrive in 3 days," said Admiral Lawson grimly. "Any word from the Defiant?" asked Miller. "Nothing yet. They should maintain radio. Silence until their mission is complete." Dr. Parker entered the room looking exhausted but excited. "We've done it," he announced. "The targeted Prometheus devices are ready. We've produced 12 so far." "Will that be enough?" asked Colonel. Wright Parker shook his head. "Against their entire fleet, no, but it's all we have time to make." The next day, Earth received a message from Ambassador Krell. The Craxian appeared on screens worldwide. "People of Earth," he said, his black eyes showing no emotion. "Your time to reconsider has ended. The full might of the Craxian Empire approaches. Surrender now, and your world will be spared major damage. Resist, and you will join the list of extinct species who foolishly challenged us." President Miller's response was broadcast immediately after. She stood tall, her face calm but determined. "The people of Earth have considered the Craxian Empire's demands," she said. "We decline. Earth is our home. We will defend it." All across the planet, humans prepared for war. Military reserves were called up. Civilian ships were converted for defense. The Prometheus devices were carefully positioned for maximum effect. In orbit, Earth's 3 defense stations were fully operational, their weapons ready. Every available warship took position in a defensive formation. Dr. Parker worked with military engineers to install the final Prometheus device. His hands shook from exhaustion and stress. "Will this really work?" asked one young engineer. Parker managed a tired smile. "It has to." 3 days later, the sensors detected what everyone had been dreading. The main Craxian battle fleet had arrived at the edge of the solar system. Over 30 massive warships, each carrying countless fighters and troops. Admiral Lawson addressed the combined Earth forces from the bridge of his flagship. "This is the moment humanity has prepared for," he said, his voice steady. "Our ancestors faced extinction many times, from ice ages, from plagues, from their own weapons. Each time they survived through courage and innovation. Today we face a new threat, but we are their children. We will not fail." As the Craxian fleet began to move toward Earth, something unexpected happened. A new ship appeared on the sensors, approaching from the opposite direction. "It's the Defiant," shouted a sensor operator. "And she's not alone." Behind the Earth ship came 3 Valkyrie vessels, their purple hulls gleaming in the sunlight. Lieutenant Martinez's voice came through the communication system. "Earth Command, this is the UES Defiant. We've brought some friends who would like to help." For the first time in days, Admiral Lawson smiled. "Well done, Lieutenant. Your timing couldn't be better." As both fleets approached Earth, the final battle for humanity's freedom was about to begin. The Craxian fleet moved toward Earth in a perfect attack formation. Their massive warships blocked out the stars behind them. On Earth, millions watched the approaching ships through telescopes or on video screens, fear and determination mixing. In equal measure, Admiral Lawson stood on the bridge of the EDS Courage, his flagship. Around him, officers monitored systems and prepared for battle. His white hair was neatly combed, his uniform perfect. He wanted to project calm confidence to his crew. "Status of the Prometheus devices?" he asked. "All 12 are in position and ready, Admiral," replied his tactical officer. "And the Valkyrie ships?" "In formation with our fleet. Their shield technology has been linked to our command network." Lawson nodded. It was time. "All ships, battle stations, remember your training. We are fighting for our world today." On the Craxian flagship, Grand Admiral Zarex watched the human defenses with mild interest. The Valkyrie ships were an unexpected complication, but nothing that would change the outcome. "They've had time to prepare," he noted, "but their efforts are futile. Begin the attack." The Craxian ships launched hundreds of fighter craft. They moved like a swarm of angry insects toward Earth's defenses. Behind them, the larger ships began firing energy weapons that lit up space with brilliant red beams. Earth's fleet responded immediately, Fighters engaged the Craxian small craft, while the larger Earth ships moved to protect the orbital defense stations. The Valkyrie vessels activated their shield technology, creating a shimmering barrier that absorbed multiple Craxian energy blasts. Their shields are effective, noted Xerax with surprise. Interesting. Target the Earth vessels first. They lack this protection. The battle quickly grew fierce. 2 Earth destroyers were hit badly and forced to retreat. A Craxian carrier was disabled by concentrated fire from Earth's defense stations. Space around Earth filled with explosions and debris. Lieutenant Martinez and the UES Defiant fought on the edge of the battle, using their speed and stealth capabilities to strike quickly and then retreat. The ship's advanced weapons were proving effective against Craxian shields. Enemy cruiser approaching portside, called out Lieutenant Davis. Evasive maneuvers, ordered Martinez. The Defiant rolled sharply, barely avoiding a massive energy blast. Lieutenant Ross worked furiously at her console. Shields holding at 60%, sir. We can't take many more hits like that. Martinez studied the tactical display. The battle was not going well. Despite Earth's preparations and the Valkyrie help, the Craxian numbers were overwhelming. 3 Earth ships had already been destroyed, and one of the orbital defense stations was heavily damaged. It was time for the next phase of the plan. Signal Admiral Lawson, Martinez ordered. Tell him we're ready to deploy the Prometheus devices. On the EDS Courage, Admiral Lawson received the message and nodded grimly. All ships, fall back to secondary positions. Prepare to activate Prometheus. Devices on my mark. Earth's fleet pulled back, appearing to retreat. The Craxian ships pressed forward, sensing victory. They run, said Grand Admiral Xerax with satisfaction. Advance the main fleet. Prepare boarding parties for their orbital stations. As the Craxian ships moved into the carefully planned positions, Lawson gave the order. Activate Prometheus. Now. 12 small devices, positioned around the battlefield, activated simultaneously. There was no explosion, no visible beam. Instead, space itself seemed to ripple around the Craxian ships. Immediately, their propulsion systems failed. Weapons went offline. Communications became scrambled. The mighty warships drifted helplessly. What is happening? Demanded Xerax as warning lights flashed across his bridge. Report. Unknown energy field, Admiral, replied a panicked officer. It's affecting our quantum signatures. Engines are offline, weapons systems failing. The Prometheus protocol, Xerax realized. They've weaponized it. With the Craxian fleet temporarily disabled, Earth's forces surged forward. The battle turned quickly. 3 more Craxian vessels were destroyed, and several others badly damaged. But Xerax was not defeated so easily. Reroute emergency power. Through secondary systems, he ordered. Launch all remaining fighters. Their Prometheus effect can't target our smaller craft. A new wave of Craxian fighters swarmed toward Earth. One of them struck the orbital defense station, causing a massive explosion. On Earth, President Miller watched the battle from the secure command center deep beneath the White House. Dr. Parker stood beside her, his face grim. The Prometheus devices won't hold them forever, he said. Their engineers are smart. They'll find a way to adapt. Miller nodded. Then we need to end this now. She turned to Colonel Olivia Wright. Is the strike team ready? Yes, Madam President. They're waiting for your order. Miller took a deep breath. Give the order. While the main battle raged, a small, specialized Earthship slipped through the confusion. It carried a strike team led by Colonel Wright herself, along with Dr. Parker, and a miniaturized Prometheus device. Their target, Grand Admiral Xerax's flagship. Using the chaos of battle as cover, they docked with the partially disabled Craxian vessel. The strike team fought their way through the halls, facing Craxian soldiers with determination. Dr. Parker, who had never seen combat before, stayed in the middle of the group, protecting the precious device he carried. His hands shook, but his eyes were steady. They reached the main engineering section of the Craxian ship. While Colonel Wright and her team held off Craxian defenders, Parker quickly installed the Prometheus device. It's set, he called. "We have 5 minutes." The team fought their way back to their ship, barely escaping before the device activated. It didn't destroy the Craxian flagship, but it completely disabled all its systems, leaving it dead in space. Grand Admiral Xerax was captured by the strike team in a final, desperate fight on the bridge of his own ship. With their commander captured and their flagship disabled, the remaining Craxian vessels began to retreat. The battle for Earth was over. 3 days later, President Miller addressed the United Leaders of Earth from the United Nations building in New York. The room was packed, and billions watched the broadcast worldwide. "Today we sign a historic treaty," she announced. "The Craxian Empire has agreed to recognize Earth and the Valkyrie worlds as sovereign and independent. This victory belongs to all humanity, and to our new allies." Commander Estelle of the Valkyrie stood beside Miller, her silver eyes scanning the crowd. "This is just the beginning," she said. "Already 3 other worlds have risen against Craxian rule. Together we will build a new alliance based on freedom, not conquest." The captured Grand Admiral Xerax had been forced to sign the treaty on our behalf of the Empire. As he was led away from the ceremony, Admiral Lawson approached him. "You never should have threatened Earth," Lawson said quietly. Xerax looked at the human with newfound respect. "We didn't understand your species," he admitted. "In all our conquests, we never encountered a world willing to risk everything rather than submit." "That's humanity's defining trait," Lawson replied with a slight smile. "We warned you." As night fell over Earth, Lieutenant Martinez stood on the observation deck of the newly repaired Defiant, looking down at the blue planet below. "Lieutenant." Ross joined him. "Beautiful, isn't it?" she said. Martinez nodded. "And still free." "What happens now?" asked Ross. Martinez looked up at the stars, thinking of the new alliance with the Valkyrie and the other worlds fighting for freedom. "Now," he said, "we explore the universe as equals, not conquerors or the conquered." Across Earth, humans celebrated their victory, but they also remembered the cost. Memorials were held for those lost in the battle, and in laboratories and shipyards, work continued. Humanity had learned an important lesson. They were not alone in the universe, and they needed to be ready. The Craxian Empire had threatened Earth. Humanity had given them one final warning, and the universe had changed forever.